Welcome to In the Harbor, the podcast where sports, leisure, and finance meet. Today we've got a special episode lined up, big emphasis on sports. We have one of the most recognizable voices in hockey, longtime ESPN anchor and the face of hockey coverage, John Buccigross. From NHL Tonight to the Bucci Overtime Challenge, he's become a staple in the sports coverage over the last 2 decades. Joining me today as my co-hosts, I'll have both Sean Richland and Mackie Daniel, and together we'll hear from Bucci about how he got his start in sports broadcasting, and we'll break down Eastern and Western Conference Finals as we head into the last leg of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Sean, what are you most looking forward to today?
Well, here's a guy who's watched college hockey or NHL hockey all year long. He knows these teams inside and out. I'm really looking forward to seeing his opinion on what's going to happen in these series, but also what he's done in his life charitably to get to where he is in the roles that he has at ESPN. A phenomenal guy that's a wealth of knowledge in hockey and really carries the banner for American hockey.
This is In the Harbor. We're glad you're here. John, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
You know, I think to kick it off, why don't we start with a little bit of your background? So you went to college at Heidelberg.
Right.
And then, how did you get into broadcasting? Was that always your passion and where you wanted to go? And let's start really at the beginning.
Yeah, I was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My parents were both South Boston born and raised, who moved to Pittsburgh in their mid-20s, and that's where they had 4 kids. I always lived an hour within Pittsburgh growing up. My dad was a huge sports fan. So I always said, if my dad would have been a crack dealer, I would have grown up being a crack dealer. I was one of those guys who lived in my dad's back pocket. So the fact that he loved sports certainly probably made a big impression on me. He played slow pitch softball. He was very competitive. Like I said, he'd watch TV on the weekends. He had Pittsburgh Steelers season tickets. He'd take us to Pittsburgh to see Penguins games, Pirate games. So I grew up around a sports fanatic dad. And so that made a big impression on me. And so when we moved to Ohio when I was 11 from Pennsylvania, I I lost all my friends, and it was a really cool college town I grew up in. And so I kind of got in this kind of like locked suburbia upbringing then that was different than the college town of Indiana, Pennsylvania I lived. So I was by myself a lot more. And so took up golf then. We were right across the street from a golf course. My parents gave me a tape recorder. I started broadcasting and playing disc jockey. And so I always knew that looking back now, I realized I was actually like a TV production kind of nerd savant. I noticed everything, even at a young age, when NBC would change their graphics, when their music was different, when the camera angle was different, at a very young age. I didn't really realize this until much later, but then I realize now that not only was I a big sports fan, I was kind of a production fan. And, MTV and ESPN come along when I'm 13, 14 years old. So again, a very impressionable time growing up with music and sports. And then, very soon I realized seeing Chris Berman on ESPN in high school, that's what I wanted to do. So picked a small school where I could maybe play sports, and then had a little TV department, radio department, school newspaper, and Heidelberg University College at the time. Now they changed the university. The basketball coach recruited me to go play basketball there. Visited that. The only place I visited, I go, this will do. This is perfect. 3 hours away from home. They have a TV station, a radio station, a school newspaper. And I got 4 years of reps, only 950 students at the time, maybe 900 when I went. Now there's just over 1,000, still not a big difference. But so really I had the whole place to myself. I could do really whatever I wanted, got a lot of reps. You go to Syracuse, there's 100 kids who want to anchor the sports cast or do play-by-play of the basketball team or whatever. And I was able to do all of it for 4 years because I had just kind of a off-the-charts passion for it and a lot of energy. So it was a great 4 years. And so my parents moved back to Boston the same year I graduated, so I went with them to look for my first TV job. And I tell kids now, I look for my first job in a phone book. Kids today don't even know what a phone book is. I looked in the yellow pages for a television station. There was one on Cape Cod. They say, you can come here. We can't pay you, but you can come work here. So I went there. They let me do a lot of stuff, and I was there for a few months, and they told me about this other place across town on Cape Cod, like a cable access operation, 7, 8 people, where people paid their cable bill, but they provided this little service of local news in the middle of Cape Cod, and ended up being there for 5.5 years, making $18,000 a year. And then got a break in Providence, Rhode Island. That was a big break when I was 28, 44th biggest market at the time. Probably a little smaller now. I'm not sure what its market size is, but I covered the Patriots and the Red Sox and the Bruins and the Celtics. And it was a cool 2 years. And bam, 30 years old, I ended up at ESPN. And so it happened. It took a while, but it seemed to happen quickly looking back now. But when you're living paycheck to paycheck for 8 years, 7 years, it's a lot slower. But yeah, I tell kids today I made $100,000 in my 20s.
That's
not a year combined. I made $100,000 from age 23 to age 30. Showed up at ESPN with a Dodge Neon and no savings account, and was able to hang around for 28 years. So that's kind of the short version of it. The kid who loves sports and had a sports passionate dad, and just again being born when I was born and having the world explode media-wise in the mid-'90s. Walt Disney bought ESPN the same year I got hired in '96. So the media world is exploding as I'm 30 years old. So I have experience, but I'm still cheap. And so that was a good way to get to ESPN. And then, of course, the idea is to stay there. Most of the people I came in with are all gone, except for Mike Greenberg. It's now just after that, it's just sticking around your job and hanging around and creating value for yourself and being flexible and being multifaceted, and that's what's probably kept me around for 28 years.
John, when you talked about that early time of your career when you were in Providence, and obviously the cash flow was super tight. When we talk to a lot of young kids who are looking to get into any industry, what drove you through the financial burden to get the passion of making it to ESPN? What was it that didn't make you veer off that path?
Yeah, that's a good question, because certainly all my friends at that time were doing better. I was making $500 every 2 weeks. My rent was $500, so there was one. It was a little cottage, 500 square foot cottage on Cape Cod, and then my car payment for my '87 Nissan Maxima, awesome car, was $287 a month. So there wasn't much left after. Then I got married at 25, dad at 26, and a dad at 28. So I had 2 kids in August of 1994, again, making like 21 grand a year. We qualified for, government assistance and things like that. That's poverty wages. But I was so happy. Like I was happy with my wife and kids. I was happy being on Cape Cod in the summer, not so much in the winter. I was happy with my job, getting better, not a lot of stress. Although I should have, looking back now, that place no longer exists. It could have vaporized anytime. It lasted maybe another 5, 7, 8, 9 years, but then it was gone, right? And so that could have happened while I was there. And so I'm not sure. Like I said, I was just always pretty happy and pretty dumb enough, I guess, not to really worry too much about it. Financially, I didn't really find out there. It was owned by TCI Cable, that first cable job. So I didn't realize this till like 4 years in. They offered $1 for $1. Like if you put $1 in, they gave you $1 back. They were looking for cash flow, in the whole stock type of 401k option. I don't think it was officially a 401k, and I didn't find that out until like year 4. I was like, why didn't anybody tell me this? And so I got into that right away. And then I got the job in Providence. I rolled it over. And then when I walked in ESPN, it was like $1,400, and I cashed it out because I needed that $1,400 to move. But I walked right in the door at ESPN. I signed up for the 401k because I knew I was behind. I knew I had 2 kids. Probably was going to have another one, which we did. I had no money. I had nothing to my name. So I got to go in there and sign up for this 401k thing and max it out right away, no matter how painful that is. And I did that, and I haven't touched it 28 years later. And, had I not gotten divorced, it'd be about $2 million right now. But once I got divorced 8 years ago, I lost half of it. But still, through the catch-up after turn 50, I did the catch-up right away, too, the extra 6,500 at the time. I think it's risen since then. And I'm in a good position now just because I walked in there at a young age and didn't touch it at age 30. But again, that was pressure with kids and a family that I felt like obviously I was the breadwinner, the only winner of the bread. It's a lot of pressure. There's real life pressure like that, which probably drove me as well.
That's great advice, though, to stick to it and not pull that out. At any point in time, you probably could have taken a penalty, taken the money out of the 401k, but you stuck it out in the compound.
Anybody can get rich in this country. It just takes 30 years, right? It just takes a long time. If you start with nothing and you don't touch it, you can do it. Now, some people inherit and things like that. I never inherited anything and didn't marry into money, so I did it that way. But you can do it that way, too. And certainly if you start with even a little bit, you can really make good progress with time and patience.
Yes, the eighth wonder of the world, as they
It
say,
is.
compound
Yeah.
investment returns.
Even Albert Einstein couldn't even figure it out. Because it's the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. It's compound interest.
That's right. You know, and when I think back to those early gigs when you were at the station, either in Cape Cod,
Right.
you know, I got to think that had to be late nights, kind of local TV, you know, good place to cut your teeth, but night and day difference from ESPN.
Right. Yeah. The first one was actually, we were live at 5, then we just repeated this half-hour newscast at 7 and 10. So that wasn't too bad. And I lived a mile away. Once I took the Providence job, my salary went from 18,000 to 30. But that was an hour and 10 minutes away. And I liked the Cape. I couldn't really afford to move. I wasn't sure. So I commuted an hour and 10 each way. And that was 3 days a week of reporting during the day, kind of. So that was probably like a 9 to 7 job with the drive. And then the weekend I would drive like at 3 o'clock, get home at 1 a.m. So but then ESPN pretty much has been exclusively nights for them, except for a 3-year window from like 2010 to 2009 to 2012. I worked like a 10 a.m. to 3 o'clock shift. I was on from noon to 3 hours a day for 3 years. But other than that, it's pretty much been a 4 to midnight, 5 to 1 a.m., 6 to 2 a.m. job. And that's been tough. Now, luckily, recently with getting hockey a couple of years ago, I do more play-by-play. I don't have quite as much of that. I do that in Sports Center, but you realize that's not really healthy. It's not really great. I missed a lot of family dinners. Did have it was good for hockey because hockey games are weekend during the day, so I didn't miss many of those. And occasionally my days off would correspond with hockey practice and get them there. And so it was a lot of nights. Which was the one negative, because I liked dinner time, tuck the kids in when they were young. I enjoyed that part of parenting a lot. So that was a big sacrifice for sure.
Now, you've helped carry kind of hockey for ESPN, dating back to when ESPN wasn't even covering the NHL. So how did you how did you morph into the regular hockey guy?
Yeah, I did kind of both. I got there in 96, ESPN News, became the NHL Tonight host in 98. And then when hockey was done, then I would do Sports Centers in the summer, or Baseball Tonight. Didn't really have a regular gig. Then we lose hockey in 2004 for 17 years. So I become kind of a jack of all trades still. But then I got that regular noon to 3 gig in 2009 for 3 hours a day. That's when ESPN first went kind of live in the afternoon. We always waited until 6 o'clock, Sports Center, 11 o'clock, and then the 1 a.m. That's all we did. And this one guy came in from ABC. So why aren't we doing Sports Centers during the day? So much news breaks during the day, and we wait till 6 to talk about it. So they said, yeah, sure, go ahead. You can start that initiative. All the other, it's like it's that old adage of companies and organizations. Well, this is the way we've always done it, right? That line you hear, this is the way we've always done it. That's why we do it. And they said, yeah, you take care of it. And it really did help transform ESPN. The newsbreaker became a thing. The Adam Schefters of the world, he came a little bit later. So yes, doing those Sports Centers during the day now. So that got me on the air noon to 3, Monday through Friday. And I think what that helped me was all the bosses, all the administrators are there during the day, 9 to 5. They're not there late at night. And their TVs are on their desk, kind of like you have and I have here. And so the background noise, or just have it on and check it out. And I think they realize, wow, that guy's not bad. I'm interviewing The Rock. I'm interviewing Matthew Stafford. I'm interviewing Vince Vaughn. People would come in, they call it the car wash, ESPN Radio, ESPN.com. This is before the phone, right about the time the phone's coming out, but social media is not a thing yet. The iPhone's not really a thing yet. It's not a way of life yet. So people are still kind of TV dependent-ish. And so that really helped launch my career. That gave me footing. And then I signed a 5-year deal to do an 11 o'clock Sports Center, and that was the big show, and probably still is the big show for the most part at the time. And I started getting to college hockey as well, and I became the voice of the Frozen Four in 2013. Right after, again, that stint really helped me a lot. And now, like I said, that's about now 2013, 2012-ish, and that's like this extra 13 years. Like the first 13, 14 years was kind of just utility, trying to find my footing, and then these last 13 years have been kind of nice. Kind of get my footing, be kind of a long-term guy. We get hockey back. In the middle, I wrote a hockey column from 2001 to 2017 for 16 years, a weekly column. So I had the chops to write, which used to be valued at the time at ESPN. That's how you separate yourself, how you could write. That's not the case now. It's all, video, visual medium, TikTok, and all the phone and everything. So the ability to write is not what it used to be at ESPN. And that's what helped me stay there for so long. And then these last few years, I'm not sure what's kept me around, but hockey helped coming back in 2021. And that's when I signed a new 4-year contract. So my contract's up next May 1st. So we'll see what happens after that. But hockey coming around when it did probably really helped me extend things a little bit, I think. I'm not sure what they had in mind if that had not come around. And we've had multiple layoffs and things like that. So you never know. It can always happen. But for now, I'm good for another year.
Well, the college hockey thing certainly helped, and you've done a great job carrying the flag for all of us college hockey fans, and what a great Frozen Four it was this year to see Western bring down the title. What was the atmosphere like there in St. Louis?
Pretty good. Like there was signage all over town. It's been there before a couple of times. Linden Woods up the street. They're trying to grow that. St. Louis is a good hockey town with the Blues. The Blues came along in the late 60s. They were good right away. Back then the expansion teams were all in the Western Conference. So they went to the Stanley Cup Finals and to play one of the original 6 teams. And they'd lose, but at least they got there and get the people a sense of competitiveness. They've been competitive a lot, the Blues. Finally won their cup in 2019. So it's a pretty good, really good sports town, pretty good hockey town. So that was good. And, I think college hockey is trying to do some big things here with the NIL and with how the college world is changing. They're really trying to almost professionalize it. They got some big ideas and what they want to do. Working with, like we're trying to get it'd be nice to get the Frozen Four, the national championship game on ABC Saturday afternoon. Do an NHL Frozen Four doubleheader where you have an NHL game on at 1. We come on with a national championship game, maybe at 4 or something, maybe an NHL game at night. Something like that to work with the NHL to really grow the game, get it on ABC, get it on a big platform, and really try to grow it. So David Carl is one guy who's really trying to, take this thing and really try to grow it and really, really push. There's a lot of competition out there now. Women's sports is growing big time. So you really got to, have some big ideas and push forward to try to find your space.
And the skill set right now in the college game is just leaps and bounds where it was 20 years ago. I mean, these kids are unbelievable as far as their ability to make plays, highlight real goals, their ability to take risks. I mean, watching Zeev Buyin play hockey is like, he's just so far ahead of everybody out there. And so there's a lot of talent too. So I feel like it can fill that void of what someone might want to watch in the afternoon.
Yeah. And the coaches, I think, are free to do that. The coaching's good. Also with this new rule allowing Canadian juniors to come down after they start playing juniors in Canada. Before that made them ineligible for college hockey. Now they can play. And so you're going to see a big influx of big time talent. They might only be here for a year or two, but that's going to start to happen, and that's going to really benefit college hockey. It's going to hurt Canadian juniors in some way, but it's going to help college hockey as these big-time players, after maybe go and play Canadian junior at age 16 and 17, once they're 18 and they feel like, wow, I want to play against older men. It might be a good bridge to my development to the NHL without playing minor league hockey. Get a big college atmosphere, a big college sport atmosphere. You're around a lot of girls, you're around a lot of different people. You're around kind of this that go to college football games. It's just it could be a real natural progression for a Canadian high level kid to play junior hockey age 16, 17, then come down to America to play college hockey age 18 or 18 and 19, and then go begin your professional career.
And I think, there's going to be NIL money for the kids, and then facilities are getting better too. Like you've heard about Western Michigan and what they're building there, and it's going to be absolutely incredible.
$1 billion. They're spending $1 billion on this gigantic hockey, basketball. Luckily you get one of those Angels in town. They live in town. They did well. They have a lot of money, and they want to be the best. And so, it's an arms race when it comes to facilities. The NAL isn't quite what it is for, other sports, but certainly some of these kids are getting 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 grand, 100. We'll hit 6 figures for some of them. But I've seen guys just get checks during the middle of last college season. Just, here it is, boom, 10, 20, whatever it is.
So it's a far cry from the 18,000 you started out on, working 40 hours a week.
It sure is, but I understand the market and how it is, and they create revenue. They sell out these rinks, and the TV contracts aren't big. That's why they'll never get the football money. And even the Big Ten network money doesn't really sprinkle down to the hockey programs per se. So there is a little bit of a limit, but and some of these programs are starting their own initiatives to raise money. And, some schools already have that where players and people are giving money. That's what's funding these players getting their little cash payments. And so you have to get on it. Western Michigan, who just won the national championship, they'd have to play, give a player a dime, but they're going to start that initiative so they can at least give them something to try to stay competitive.
I think this year you're going to see the first big breaks in that universe in the NIL space. I mean, I know Guy Godowski over at Penn State's talking heavily about it, or at least has been in the news about it. Whether or not it's going to happen or not, I can't speak to. But and certainly other schools are looking at spending the dough. But I can't wait to see the talent come in. It's going to push kids back, though. American kids are going to come in later, don't you think?
I would, yeah. Well, they have the USHL for that if they want to do that, or they could go to Canada, I suppose, if they live in a certain part of the country and go play in the OHL. I suppose that could be an option for them now. So it'll be interesting to see how it affects the UHL and the OHL. And like you said, if there's 20 high-end players coming down, how that affects. But again, if you're talking 10 teams, the 10 teams who will likely be in the running, or maybe 10 to 15 teams, then you're only talking maybe a couple spots a team. So maybe not. Maybe it's not as. But again, like people ask me what they think, and I said we always have to wait for these things to play out. We don't know unintended consequences. We don't quite know until you can have all your theories, but it has to start being in action, and then we really see. Oh, I didn't realize that's right because that happened. Now that happened, and that affected them, and maybe there's opening more spots there, and maybe this team appears. So yeah, until it starts really going, you're not exactly sure how it's going to end up.
John, wanted to get your thoughts real quick, getting back to David Carl. Obviously, his name was floated a ton this hiring cycle for NHL head coaches, and he just signed his multi-year extension at Denver. He's had a ton of success there, but looking at some of the openings up until recently, teams like Anaheim, Chicago, Seattle, even Vancouver with some of the younger talent, the pieces that they kept around this past year. What do you think was the draw for him to stay put in college hockey versus making the jump?
Yeah, that's a tough one because Chicago offered him pretty much everything he wanted, years and money. And, obviously probably had a little bit of control in terms of the culture and everything. It seemed like that'd be the perfect spot. Does have 3 kids under the age of 5. I'm sure his wife was probably a little leery moving to Chicago. Also, outside of a couple years at Green Bay when he coached in the USHL, he's been at his whole adult life on campus since he was 18. He was going to play at Denver, had a physical, realized he had a health situation, so he had to quit hockey, got right into coaching right away. Then, to Green Bay, back to Denver. And any of us who love our alma mater, I know my 4 years, it was difficult leaving college after 4 years. It took me like 5 years to get over it, being around that many friends. I miss my friends. I miss the comfort of a college. It's just, it's very comforting and safe. And I'm sure a lot of that with him, he probably feels safe there. It's a very comforting, safe feeling. And that probably was, for him and his wife, I bet that was an overriding factor. I remember being 22, 23 and heading out in the world and thinking, man, if I won the lottery, I would stay here and go for 4 more years and get another degree. That's how much fun I love being here, and being around people my age and playing intramural sports and just working on something and getting better and having a dream. And so I just wonder if he's had that kind of similar sensibility. Because, he'll never be a hotter topic with a couple of gold medals on World Junior, a couple of national championships. But, if you're confident in yourself and your ability and he's still making a good living there, the top end college coaches make around $700,000. Certainly you can have a few incentives here or there. Maybe get a little higher, but right around there. Not a lot of them, but that's obviously a very good living. And he's been the head coach for a while, and you can be very happy, certainly with that kind of salary. But yeah, to turn down that kind of contract where you're looking at maybe 20, 25 million guaranteed, there's something to say about that. And sometimes, as we know, you can really raise your stature in life by saying no to something like that. It's like, whoa. He didn't take that. I'm even more impressed with that guy now. You know what I mean? Saying no is a very powerful thing in a lot of different circumstances in life. And so, he's still a young man, very young, and he still is very competitive. He's a killer inside, a very competitive person. So he'll be back.
Well, it looks like you had tweeted out that Jeff Blashill is going to get that gig from a guy who struggled here in Detroit where we are to make the playoffs, get that team going, and is now, as I hate to even use this word, but recycled into another program. What do you think his chances are of success? I mean, this roster needs so much help. Where do they start?
It does, but I think they have a high-end defensive core. They now have, a goalie, a young goalie that if he can, get stabilized in his career from the goalie out, they're in good shape. I'm bullish on Nazar. I think he's going to be a star. Bedard will figure it out. He's got to figure out how he can play in this league. He should be a shooter. He should just be play the wing and shoot everything that comes your way. Mm-hmm. He has an elite shot. He's not a great skater. He never will be an explosive skater, but use your strengths. They have cap room. Players want to play there because it's Chicago. It's a big city. They'll get college free agents because, again, they want to sign there because it's a big city. So I'm pretty bullish on them. Blashill got the Detroit job at the worst time. They were trying to extend their playoff streak. Obviously, you get Zetterberg close to 40, all these guys, and they get no lottery luck. They don't get the phenom to draft. They just get good players, no great players. So it just was a bad time. This is a better time. He can grow with this team with these high-end players they have. And then they still got to get lucky for a couple more of these high-end players and then supplement it with the right free agent. So I think he's got a better chance this time. It's only a second chance. He won a championship in the American League. He won a championship in the USHL. He turned around Western Michigan his short time there. Ferschweiler was an assistant of him and made a big impression on him. Then Ferschweiler, when he finally got the head coaching job, right away he started winning and then won a national championship. So Blashill, I think, is a winner, and I think Detroit stained him a bit. Now he's been around Cooper and Tampa Bay for a couple of years, so he's 50 years old. I think he's at a good age, great experience level, a lot of ups and downs in his career. The Detroit situation, I think he's in a good spot to succeed.
I think we should move on to some NHL stuff here, guys. What do you think?
I think that's a great segue, considering we have the conference finals coming up.
Yeah.
It's an exciting time to be an NHL fan, and looking back on your days at NHL Tonight with the great Barry Melrose, so many people have watched those highlights of you. But there's nothing like playoff hockey, is there? I mean, as a fan, I was in Dallas last week and I watched the Winnipeg series, and watching Rantanen do what there's just so many storylines in the playoffs, and I honestly don't know if anybody's healthy left in any of these four teams.
Yeah, the sports fan is really conditioned for tournament sports. They like March Madness. The NFL and football, because it's a once-a-week short sport, regular season games have a playoff feel. And so that's the magic, obviously, pill of football, which is why it's so popular. But with baseball and basketball and hockey, there's so much inventory during the regular season, it kind of gets lost. So the fan likes to focus on the 2-month tournament. And that's when things really heighten. And certainly hockey is right in that mix. And it's just every night, there's an every night aspect to it for a couple of months. You wake up thinking about the game at night, especially if your team is playing. And how these players sell out it's just great television. Overtime hockey is just so awesome. Commercial free. Every shot's a buzzer beater. Basketball, it's just one buzzer beater. It's when it's close to going zero. But in hockey, with and it's kind of like baseball in the bottom of the ninth, one pitch away. It's also very compelling. With hockey, again, every shot's a buzzer beater. That's what makes overtime playoff hockey so exciting, commercial free, and just so much tension that a low scoring sport like soccer and hockey can provide. You get blowouts in NBA playoffs and Game 7 blowout. You don't see really a lot of blowouts comparably in the Stanley Cup playoffs. It's close for much of the game, and it could break open like Florida did, obviously, in their Game 7 against Toronto. But it was still tight in the first, tight in the second. You come out in the third, there's still tension. So you get more bang for your buck with the Stanley Cup playoffs, with tension and drama. And here we are with 4 teams left.
So if we look specifically at the Eastern Conference Final, so we got the Florida Panthers, Carolina Hurricanes. What are you looking for in that matchup?
Really, how Carolina is an in-your-face team with so much pressure. Florida's going to see way more pressure in this series than they really have yet. Tampa and Toronto don't quite play like Carolina. Now, Carolina does not have the high-end offensive talent that Tampa Bay and Toronto has. So that's the challenge for Carolina. They don't have high-end scorers. So they're going to have to win this thing pretty low scoring, and that's a tough ask against a team like Florida, who has 3 scoring lines and a 4th line that's pretty good. So that's the challenge. Carolina will be in their face. They need to win 2-1, 3-2. And that's why, they under Rod Brindamore, they've been very successful, but they haven't got that final step because they just don't have that high-end offensive guy. Everything would have to go just right for them, where Freddie Anderson, the goalie, plays off his head. And then they just get a lot of contributors offensively that can maybe score 3 to 4 goals a game and win 4-3, 3-2. That's going to be the challenge. It's tough to beat this Florida team. These guys are all in their prime. They're not 30 years old yet. They're just in this perfect window where they still should be fresh. They can bounce back physically, even though it's been 3 years in a row for the Stanley Cup final if they make it. So that's going to be the challenge. Florida is certainly the favorite, but Carolina, the way they play in their face, they'll cause more resistance for the Panthers than their first 2 series.
I think one of the most interesting things about this series is going to be the third line forward matchup. Obviously, we know what Brad Marchand brings in the playoffs and how productive he was in this series against Toronto, but that line for Florida was the most productive line in the whole series. But meanwhile, on the Carolina side, you have Jordan Staal, who's been around almost 20 years, one of the best defensive centermen in the game. Jordan Martinook, a guy that was on waivers a couple of years ago. He's had a great postseason. That's a matchup, especially with any of those combos of D pairings that Carolina has, could be a lot of fun to watch.
It could be for sure. And so, that's going to be the big challenge because like Marchand won't have quite, I think, as much room, especially at home. It'll be interesting to see how Rod Brindamore wants to match this up, who he wants to go against whom. It's, I assume he wants Staal out there against Barkov. I'm pretty sure he's going to want that matchup at home. We'll see what happens on the road. But again, that second line with Bennett and Tkachuk. Bennett is such an amazing skater. That's going to put a lot of pressure on the center iceman of Carolina. Kotkaniemi is going to have to bring it somehow. He's up and down. So that's going to be the challenge, really, is handling those 3 lines because Lundell's a real player. And so it's going to be tough. But again, Carolina's a little more in the face, but I still don't think they quite have enough to deal with the Panthers.
They got a great defensive defenseman in Slavin as well, so he can play that role to shut down. But I look at what Bill Zito did at the deadline, bringing in Jones and Marchand. How in the world is he able to pull that off when he's in a situation like this and no other teams are going to get these guys? How does that happen, in your opinion, in the NHL?
Yeah, well, obviously you get Seth Jones because you're willing to give Spencer Knight up,
right.
And that's exactly what Chicago needed. So that was a great trade for Chicago. And again, they had the cap space. Chicago ate a couple million, so they got Seth Jones as a $7 million player because Matthew Tkachuk was an LTIR. So It worked out perfectly for them. Their playoff team is way over the cap in terms of, but there is no salary cap in the postseason. They're thinking about maybe changing that to kind of to try to stop from doing those kinds of late season trades when you put one guy on LTIR till the playoffs. But in Marchand, I am surprised that nobody offered more for Marchand, a team that could offer to a first like Florida and offered maybe a third or maybe a prospect. The fact that they don't realize I just can't believe some of these NHL GMs don't see the value of some of these players for the playoffs. Like I talked about Sam Bennett being a free agent. Like in my mind, he's a $9-10 million player because of how he plays in the playoffs. He'll get you 25, 30 goals in the regular season and maybe more with a bigger role. But, he's going to get you 25 to 30. He gives you a culture of toughness, intimidation. He's, like I said, an elite skater who's 28 years old. And I'm sure in his mind, it's like, there's no way that Elias Lindholm and Matthew Barzal and Bo Horvat should make more than me. I'm sure that's what he's thinking, right? Because that's how you think, whether you're a salesman or whether you're an athlete, like that person shouldn't make more than me. And I'm sure he looks at that. And now, again, Florida is a tax-free state. They can give 8 years as opposed to 7. So I just wonder, like 8 times 8, I wonder if that has been his ask, him and his agent's ask of Florida. And Florida are probably like, can we get to 6, 9, or 7?
Yeah.
Because we're trying to save every dollar we can here, because they also have Ekblad up, who's a $7 million player and would be very popular in the open market. My guess is they can't keep Ekblad and Bennett unless they both take a big cut, or at least a decent cut. And I'm not sure if either player wants to do that. And I get that. So that I like that part of being a fan and being in the business, being the GM, and thinking about player value and salary caps. I like that part of the business as well.
Bennett to Detroit, Mackey. What do you think?
I mean, everybody could use him. I mean, literally every team could use a player like Sam Bennett. He's scarce. He's scarce.
Big time. I wanted your thoughts, John, on Rod Brindamore's coaching job this year. Obviously, a decent amount of big name turnover with arguably their first or second best offensive piece with Martin Necas going to Colorado in the initial deal for Mikko Rantanen. And then you turn around, trade him for Logan Stankoven. And then you also bring Taylor Hall in, who seasoned vet, former Hart Trophy winner, but he's been a bit of a suitcase, hasn't stayed put in one spot very long. But they seem to have adapted to his system pretty well. What's your thoughts on his coaching system and the way players are really able to jump right in and make an impact late into the postseason?
Yeah, it's very simple. There's not a lot of ice time, so you can go hard every shift. You get 17 minutes, and that's it. Marty Necas went from 17 to 20 when he got traded to Colorado. He probably had to learn to play at a little different pace for those extra 3 minutes. But if you look at it as Hall and Stankoven for Necas, that's a great trade if you're Carolina. I mean, that's a really good trade. Stankoven has a Carolina motor and engine. I think he's a Cam Atkinson type of player. I think he'll score more goals than Marty Necas over the next 5 years, personally. I think he's going to be a 30-goal guy who might touch 40 once or twice like Atkinson did. He really reminds me of him with his motor and hands. And then and Hall, he signed an extension, so finally someone's going to keep him around for a couple of years. But you're right. But, Rod is such a fun guy to play for. He's so honest. He's so energetic. He leads by example, being in shape and being an energetic person himself, that the players just take to it. It's a great culture down there. He's not going anywhere. He has a lot of power being down there as well, so that makes every player accountable. If you're not in, you'll be out soon. And so I think players like that. And once they live in a place like Raleigh, there's not a lot of pressure. The fans are really good. It's a pretty good climate. Sneaky great travel place. They have no far flights in their conference at all. Even Florida, when they go up, to Montreal and Boston and Toronto, that's a long flight. Carolina's in a great location to get home, and it's probably a great quality of life. You're not in the plane too much. You sleep in your own bed, probably way more than other teams. So, yeah, it's a great spot. I root for people like Rod. He's obviously you won as a player, but I'd like to see him win as a coach.
He's a Spartan. It's all.
Yes, absolutely.
He's a good Spartan.
Here we go. So I'm taking Bucci. If you think good Bob in this series, you like Florida?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, as long as Bob is good, I just think they have too many scoring options, a little more. But again, this defense for Florida better be ready because they haven't seen a forecheck like Carolina. Martinook is a junkyard dog. Even Kokoniemi's a big boy. Stankoven is a great skater, even though he's little. He'll be in there. And Aho and Svechnikov is playing with confidence and swagger now that he's scoring. So, there's some stuff there for Carolina, and William Carrier is an absolute wagon. He's going to cause damage. So they're going to get some of their own Sam Bennett medicine from like Martinook and Carrier in terms of crushing body checks. And Jordan Stahl's a mountain of a man that can handle Barkov, at least physically along the wall, right? Florida's great along the wall. Carolina's great on the wall. This is a wall battle. This is a grinding wall battle. Who comes off the wall to make an offensive play, or who protects the wall on the defensive end and prevents that defensive play? So, yeah, I really do think this is going to be a grindy, physical wall. This is going to be a really good series. I think this is going to be a Winnipeg Blues type of series, which in my mind was the most violent so far.
I don't like the narrative that Carolina is boring to watch. We got a lot of that last round. Sean and I were talking about it this morning. It's like a good pitcher's duel in the 90s. It's like watching Maddox and Kerry Wood battling out on WGN at 2:00 in the afternoon back in the day.
Right.
If you like control and you like fast pace and you like good defense, why wouldn't you want to watch this team?
Yeah, I feel like there's something wrong with me because I hear all these people saying it's boring. I go, it looks like playoff hockey to me. It's intense. They're trying to score. They just don't have a lot of high-end talent to score. They would score more if they had more high-end talent. But they try. But they're just in your face. They play hard. They forecheck. Again, they roll four lines. The guys are fresh. They go all out. that's just how they have to play. If they were more top heavy, those guys would probably play a little bit more, and they would probably score a little bit more. And but for the most part, they just don't have a lot of flashy guys. But they play the same way that pretty much most people play. These teams are pretty similar system wise. They go hard, but I don't find it boring at all. They have a great atmosphere in their home arena, and like I said, I like watching Carrier skate. And they're Slavin 101 is just a master defensively. Brett Burns is very entertaining for me to watch, how he gets pucks through from the point, still at his age, better than anybody, how he gets those quick snappers on goal, on the net. And so the Keishan kid, this new defenseman, I think is an absolute stud. Looks like he might play in game one. I think Chatfield might be out, which I'm glad. I want to see more of this kid. He's a mountain of a man with talent and a shot. So, I don't understand that boring thing. Competitive, close, theatrical, tense hockey. To me, that's the best there is.
Well, I think we have a lot of great things to look forward to in this series, but why don't we move west and get into the Western Conference Finals with the Dallas Stars, Edmonton Oilers?
Dallas is looking good. I mean, they are loaded. They have depth. They have Heiskanen back now. Obviously, Mikko Rantanen's the star of the postseason, becoming like the alpha of that team. He was kind of third or fourth in Colorado with McKinnon, Landeskog, and Makar. He didn't really have to be the man. Now he's the man. I think he never really probably envisioned himself in this role. I'm sure he thought he'd re-sign in Colorado for 8 years and just play with Makar and McKinnon the rest of his way and just kind of be comfortable in that second fiddle almost, at least attention-wise and stuff. Certainly respected on his way to a Hall of Fame career. But I think he kind of thrown the situation he never really saw coming. Wow, I'm like the guy. And I think he's enjoying that. And he got, Winnipeg is a small defensive core, so I think that helped him there. Edmonton's a bigger team, so this is going to be harder for Dallas. I did a game in Dallas earlier in the year before they got Rantanen and Peter DeBoer. We get to meet the coaches one-on-one before the game. It's a great way. They're usually very candid with us, very open, very honest. We know what to use, what not to use, how to couch anything they tell us. But I remember looking at his team coming off from they play soccer underneath the bowels of the arena and stretch out in their shorts and their T-shirt. I'm like, man, your team is small. They're little. And he kind of laughed and said, yeah, we are kind of small. And so they had to get Rantanen because they were just too small. And so now they have him. That helps. But I still think Edmonton has a size advantage. And they're pretty big now and pretty strong. And now that Frederick and Kane have gotten under their skates now, and when you have the star power they did, now certainly Rantanen having the star power helps because few teams can neutralize the two-headed star power of Draisaitl McDavid because they only have one guy in that neighborhood. But, and Colorado did. Of course, they had 3 2 years ago, and they swept Edmonton with Makar and Rantanen and McKinnon, even Landeskog. The year they won the Cup, they swept them. So they can at least neutralize McKinnon and Draisaitl a little bit. And I'm a big fan of Jake Ottinger as well. And with Heiskanen back and Lindell and how they play defense, but I just think the will of the superstars of McDavid and Draisaitl will be just a little too much. You tend to lean on these superstars like this in these situations, whatever sport it is, but especially basketball. But because hockey, there's still 18 guys and 19 guys with the goalie. So it's a little different than basketball. But still, when you have 2 like that, that's a lot. I would not be shocked if Dallas won, but I'm leaning Edmonton.
In your interactions over the years with Pete DeBoer, what is it about him that just seems to win so much in the playoffs and get teams ready? What is it his characteristics that he brings into the locker room that you can sense from your position?
I really enjoy talking with him. He was a good offensive player in the OHL, got into coaching relatively early, was a head coach in the OHL for 13 straight years. That he's not missed a paycheck in the NHL. As soon as he loses a job, he gets another one. He was fired once in midseason and got a job the same midseason. And so that's how good he is. He's got a great demeanor. He's not too much, not too little. He's very smart. He can make in-game adjustments. He's got just a perfect touch about him. Being an offensive player like he was, I think that always helps coaches because they can relate to offensive players. They think like they think, which I think offensive players appreciate. And just an amazing demeanor and amazing calmness, composure, confidence, quiet confidence, and that inner fire that David Carl kind of has. Like underneath is like a killer. I mean, Peter DeBoer's got a great laugh. He likes to laugh. He likes to giggle. Got a kind of a Scotty Scheffler look about him as well. He's just a very likable, relatable guy that probably wears well over a long season.
On that roster for Dallas, who's one player that maybe isn't so sought after or thought of that you think can be a big difference maker in this series?
Well, they need Jason Robertson and Matt Duchene to kind of get going. Again, they're not great skaters. They don't play with great pace, and guys like that can get lost in the postseason. And certainly Edmonton's going to have pace, obviously, with the skaters that they have. But maybe if they get the right matchups, the bottom six, the pace isn't as strong for Edmonton as it is the top six. So there might be spots where those guys can maybe have a chance, because Edmonton does have holes where they don't have a lot of speed. So they need them to show up. Rupe Hintz, we know what he can do, and Rantanen, and Ben is now he's kind of like a role player, and Sagan is certainly, him and Ben aren't what they used to be. But it's really those guys. And maybe Wyatt Johnston, who got kind of, the speed game, he's not a burner, so he can sometimes disappear for a while. Certainly a heady player. But I think it's really Duchene, Robertson, and Johnston. Can they kind of find those pockets of non-McDavid ice time and Draisaitl and maybe do something? Because that's what Dallas needs. They need those three guys to pop in maybe 3 goals each, like 2-3 goals each. I think then they have a chance. If they're going to continue to be cold, then Dallas won't have a chance.
John, I'm with you on Wyatt Johnston. He's in his third full year. He's played all 82 games his first 3 regular seasons. He's already at over 50 playoff games. He had 4-2 in his first year. He had 10-6 last year in, I think, just under 20 games. He's got another 4-4 this year. I think he needs to be a catalyst. And the 3 true veterans, all 3, Duchene, Ben, and Sagan, are all 350 plus goal scorers regular season. They got to play like they've scored those kind of goals if Dallas wants to have a chance.
Exactly, because Rantanen obviously couldn't keep up that pace. Granlund's not really a goal scorer. He's not going to score many goals in this series, I don't think. So they're going to need, Hintz to get going a little bit, and those guys you talked about are going to have to try to find their way. And they can do it in the power play, especially Johnston and maybe Duchene or Robertson for sure. So they're going to have to try to figure that out. And they can. Let's face it, Edmonton's gone back and forth with their goalies. Oof. That's certainly not a certainty for them. But yeah, so that's what Dallas is going to have a complete team effort. They definitely can do it. They have the team to do it. But again, I just wonder especially how Edmonton, I think they're trying to hit the ground running. They're trying not to have that stinker of a first game, that stinker of the first period. I wonder if they've gotten over that. Come out, win game 1. And then we're in really great shape to dictate this series. Fall back, 0-1 or 0-2 or last year in the finals, 0-3, and still almost pull it off. I think they learned from that to get off to a good start. So I think game 1 of that series is also going to be awesome.
Yeah, goaltending is so important this time of year. As you mentioned, and Edmonton's gone back and forth. I feel like they're not confident in either one. And the old saying goes, if you have 2 goalies, you don't have one. But, Ottinger, to me, is playing at the highest level of the 4 goalies left. You could maybe throw Bob in there, but Bob's a little bit inconsistent. What do you think Edmonton has to do to solve this? They just got to stick with one guy, or you think they're still going to rotate? What do you see?
Yeah, well, they'll play the hand. Obviously they'll go a game at a time for sure. Someone has a stinker. They lose game 1. Skinner will get the net for sure. And if it's a close, tight game, he'll probably get game 2 for sure. If they're down 0-2, they'll probably flip. If they come back 1-1, then he'll probably start game 3. If they fall 2-1, they'll see how it goes. And then, so that's how I think Knobloch's going to handle it. Ottinger's got a great defense in front of him. Esa Lindell is almost in that Jacob Slavin category, not quite, but he's really good, rangy and big and defense first. Now that Heiskanen's back, who's so smart, Harley's a number 1 defenseman now, so they really have 2 ones. And that's a pretty good lineup they have on defense now in Dallas. A pretty good little depth they have going now that Heiskanen's back. So this is a well-layered team. Again, I just worry about up front. Some of the skaters, the speed and the size up front, there's a couple of holes there. Marchment's been invisible. It'd be really good if he could match, what Frederick and Kane bring and be a rangy guy who can maybe pop a couple in again, because he hasn't had great playoff success scoring goals either. So it's all those guys we talked about for Dallas. They got to show up, and if they do, they can pull this off, because they have the guys to do it. The depth is very similar on these teams. It's just high end. Obviously, Edmonton's got 2 and Dallas has got 1.
It seems like Marchman spent more time in the box this playoffs than he has on the ice. Just a few wrong place, wrong time, but
got a bad reputation. He whines a lot. Officials do not give him the benefit of the doubt.
Right. Looking at Edmonton's decor, 2 big pickups, Jake Wallman at the deadline, signing John Klingberg. I think those are both guys that have historically been a little bit more offensive minded. Wallman certainly was here in Detroit. There was flashes of good defense, but it was more his offense. With Matthias Ekholm being hurt right now, do you think there's any worry about having a more offensive decor than a stay-at-home defensive decor?
I don't think so. I think they want the puck. They defend with the puck. So, and Klingberg's really been a revelation. Didn't look great early. I didn't think he was a great fit, but I think he'll be a good fit in this series as well. He'll be able to make those clinical passes, stretch passes. Wallman as well. Ekholm's skating, so man, he's going to come back. He skated with the team at practice today. We'll see. I'd be surprised if he played game 1. Maybe see how it goes. But Bouchard certainly is hot and cold, and I think they miss Cody Ceci. Ceci's a good right-handed defenseman. He's certainly on Dallas, so Edmonton's going to see what he brings. He pinches on the wall really well. He comes up in big games pretty well. So that's going to be fun to watch too. He adds that, Ceci, Harley, Lindell, Heiskanen. That's a really good top 4. They have Bischel, the big beast down there as well. So Dallas has good depth in front of Ottinger, who I agree. I think he's the best goalie left. But man, Bob's been really good making timely saves early on that game 7. He kept it 0-0, and overall, he still looks like he's got a lot in the tank.
For sure.
And the other conference.
John, what's of the 4 teams that are left, which uni is your favorite?
Well, I would, the Panthers have an underrated logo. I think it's high end. I really like it a lot. And so I would probably go to the Panthers. I like the Panthers logo.
All right.
I think if Carolina goes down 0-2 out of the gate, they got to have alternative uniform night and pull out the old Whalers jerseys with the Cooperalls.
How good would that be?
The Cooperalls. Oh my gosh. Can't even skate in those things.
It's hockey and slacks.
So good. They
couldn't stop on those things when he fell on the ice. He kept sliding right in the boards. That was the problem with those things.
They were terrible. I had to wear them when I was a kid. I was like, get these off of me. So I'm taking you like Florida. You like Edmonton.
I do.
You don't want to see the Ranton and Carolina matchup in the Cup?
No, that'd be good. I said that's storylines, and I don't really root for anybody, but I root for my predictions is what I do. I make they have us make predictions on ESPN.com, then I root for my predictions and look smart. That's what guys do.
So you picked a repeat here matchup?
I did, yeah. And I mean, as we went one series at a time.
Got it.
But a couple last round, I was like, I think we might see this again. So, and I think we're going to see Edmonton and Florida again.
Speaking of predictions, wanted to touch on another one you made a little bit earlier than this year's Cup Finals. 2015, you make the call that Ovi's going to pass Wayne Gretzky for the most goals all time. And it came to fruition on an oddly close timeline to what you had initially laid out. What was it like to see that, and especially the acceleration in goals from Ovi post-injury this year?
Yeah.
And just how many more eyes that probably got on the game this year?
For sure. Actually, I don't mean to correct you, but 2010, I wrote a column that he could break the record. That's when I wrote that column I told you about on ESPN.com. You're looking for ideas. And I said, well, this guy's really off to a good start. Doesn't seem to get hurt. Let's just map this out and just kind of project using historical comparisons, like when he's 35. Oh, look, Phil Esposito had a 36-goal year. Why can't he? Brett Hall had this many goals at 37. He could do that. So I really went through history to say, okay, this is how it could be. And it came out just about like you said. Now, again, he had to not get injured. But he looked like the kind of guy that wouldn't get injured. And so, yeah, and then in 2015, I tried to make it more to an exact date. As we got closer, it became fun. And it became really fun because all along I was very bullish on it, and people would bring it up, obviously. And I've always said he was more likely to get 1,000 goals than not break the record. It was more likely to me to get 1,000. Not breaking the record to me was a given. But it was good, yeah. But early last year, it did not look good. And then post All-Star break, when he took the kids to Dubai and rode those camels, whatever it was, post All-Star break last year to this year, just carried right over. I think Spencer Carberry was a big reason why. The coach, he convinced him to play right wing so he could get the puck in motion better, to stay in the play. He doesn't play 4-on-4 anymore. He stays out all 2 minutes on the power play. Like those little things that Carberry convinced him of with film, I think really brought the best out of Ovi. And then the team got behind it. The team was good. They made a couple of good trades. A couple of young players blossomed, like Protas and McMichael. So they became deeper. So just everything worked out perfectly for Ovi. And it was, good for the sport that it happened. And they had that kind of record-breaking performance.
Well, that's great. I think writing that article in 2010 is incredible. Incredible foresight. Right. It's nice when you get it right.
Yeah, I mean, he could have been hit by a truck in 2011. So it was you put yourself out there. Anything can happen. But it worked out great. It's been a fun little thing to have, throughout the years, and to stick with it. And certainly when social media came along, then you're able to keep those things going and post the article once in a while and give updates. And so it was a lot of fun for me on social media, especially.
So speaking of social media, let's talk about the Bucci Overtime Challenge and specifically some of the charities you've supported and raised money for.
Yeah, it was just a lark. We used to do it back in the NHL Tonight days in the late 90s. We'd be on set, a game would go to overtime, and just to kill the time, because our show would be on right after the game ended, we'd throw $1 on the set, me, Melrose, and Ferraro, and pick a couple of guys. If your guy scores, take the $2, start the show. If nobody's guy scored, throw the $1 back in your pocket and start the show. And so I was on Twitter, and I said, let's bring that back. And so I said, I just threw it up there one day, and I just retweeted people as a prey. If you got it right, I'll retweet 10 people and pick the right guy. Pick one guy in each team. And then it just got real popular quickly. I was surprised. I had just joined social media, and I said, maybe I'll make T-shirts and we'll sell some, and I'll give it away to charity. And next year, and I got enough of a response. I said, okay, I'll give it a shot next playoffs. I bought 1,000 T-shirts, spent like $5,000 or like $5 a T-shirt, and small, medium, large, extra large, double XL. And sure enough, bang, I sold them, and I got hats and I got coasters, and suddenly people were just sending me money. I didn't have a website yet. Someone gave me a GoDaddy website, and then I got a Shopify now. I just couldn't believe I sold like $20,000 worth of T-shirts out of my house the first December around Christmas time. I couldn't believe it. So the fact that so I've given away like $250,000, anything that's hockey related. If a player starts a foundation, if a youth organization is trying to build new locker rooms or whatever it is, just something around hockey. And so it was just a lot of fun. It's kind of like the old Paul Newman when he started all the salad dressings. He had no idea it was going to become like a $100 million industry for him. So he just said, we'll give it all away. And then he realized, geez, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Maybe I should have given half away. and I'm like, geez, I could have paid off my mortgage by now had I not agreed to give it all away. But it's been really fun. And so, I can't believe it's still going on. People are still excited about it 15 years later. I'm surprised at the legs. I thought it would have fizzled by now. And I don't quite sell as much as I do on the side. They still play the game, and some people still dabble and buy some stuff. It's not quite the hot item it was there for a few years. Like anything, it's hard to preserve a brand for a long time. But it's still overall pretty good legs nonetheless.
That's great. I mean, what an awesome story too. And it was just going back to you guys in just studio.
Right. Just a lark. Same with college hockey, that hashtag, threw it up there once, and it just kind of got a little fire. And then I started making hats and T-shirts, and my college hockey stuff actually outsells my Bucci stuff now. That's more of a seller than the Bucci Overtime stuff. Now, part of it is I don't launch new products. I realize any business, you have to launch new products. That's the key in any business, whether it's a restaurant or merchandise or apparel, because you have a core audience that likes you and is loyal. You just got to give them new products, and they'll buy them. But I just haven't been as aggressive doing that. It takes time and space in my house, and you lose a little bit of the fire to do that. But I might at some point, maybe I'll kick it back up again here as time goes on, and so I'll think about doing that.
Now that the Leafs are done, maybe you run back the Austin Matthews fishing picture.
I know, I should.
Little
That
less
would be
hair,
great.
little bit more of a mustache. Get him in the salmon shorts
He was like
again.
a 17-year-old kid on Twitter. He DM'd me, "Hey, can I get one of those T-shirts?" I go, "Sure, Austin. Give me your address." I met on that T-shirt. He's like 17, and then who knew he'd end up scoring 69. And people knew he was going to be good at that time. But yeah, it was so cool. That little picture of a fish and that T-shirt. It's classic.
400 goals later.
Exactly.
Well, Bucci,
awesome.
Appreciate you copping on. We have one last segment for you that we like to run through with our guests, and hopefully a little rapid fire. Jason, right?
Yes, the intent is to be rapid fire, so quick answers as they come to you. So we're going to kick it off with top 3 golf courses.
Ooh, I will say for me, Marion, Pebble Beach, and Shinnecock.
It's hard to argue.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and favorite arena snack?
Oh, favorite arena snack. You know, I like the French fries. I'm a French fry guy.
This is more specific to you, John, but best arena to broadcast a game in?
Right now, I'd say Detroit. I loved the Little Caesars. It's a great vantage point. Gondola. You like the gondola effect, then you hang over the ice.
I can't argue with that.
It smells like a new car still.
It certainly does. What's a recent book you've read that you'd recommend?
What did I just finish? Oh, the one, the Admiral who said, "Make your bed every day."
Was that McChrystal?
Yes, it's just I think it's McChrystal. Phenomenal book. And in fact, I'm going to read it again. I realized, I'm going to go back to that book. I read it probably 6 months ago. I'm going to read it again.
Curls or bench?
Always curls. Nothing more fun. Doesn't take a lot of energy. You know, those low energy days. Oh, we'll do biceps today. There's, not all. It's just an easier workout.
I did hear you can do them every day now. You used to say one, not every day.
You need a 1-day rest in between.
There you go.
Yeah, got to get muscles grow. Your muscles grow by eating and sleeping, not by working out.
If you tell people they can do them every day, nobody's going to do legs.
That's fair.
Favorite chicken parm?
Mine. Made it last night for Mom. It was unbelievable.
All right. Outside of yours, where would you go get a chicken parm? Because nobody can get yours.
Yeah, the north end of Boston, Tresca. They make the Jeremy Swayman special, the Swayman special. It's veal parm, but still phenomenal. They pound it and just phenomenal. That's where I learned to make my parm. Is they gave me a couple tips there. That brought my parm to a new level.
And then another Bucci specific one. Favorite bourbon?
It's funny. Like for me, in terms of value and just I love it. Is Elijah Craig. It's like $30 and it's delicious. 94 proof, which is right in my sweet spot. And to me, it is. Outside of a Pappy 12 year. It is phenomenal. But Redbreast 12 would be that's Irish, obviously Irish whiskey. That's a close runner-up. It's delicious, lower proof, so less damage can be done.
Last one for you, John. Favorite newer band named Red Clay Strays that you've listened to in the last 12 months?
Wow. Favorite song from them?
Yeah, let's go favorite song.
Yeah, well, I know the one that I don't know them well enough to remember the song titles, but they were on my last playlist that I just deleted. I'm now constructing a new one for the summer, but I can't name. I'm sorry, I can't name the name of the song.
For the record, for those of you that are music aficionados, John Buccigross, this is a breaking story.
Oh, breaking news!
Might have the best playlist of anyone I've ever been around.
I can make a playlist. It's one of my skills. One of my 4 skills in life is making an awesome playlist.
And he spends so much time curating these lists. It's
way too much.
It's unbelievable.
As much time as I spend in the college hockey top 16 that I post on Twitter for free, and I grind over that every week.
It's incredible. I don't know if you can share what they are. Can people find it on Apple Music, maybe, or
Spotify that you can publish?
Yeah, I'm an Apple guy. I'm not a Spotify guy. I quite figure it out. But hey, if you send me an email, I'll send you my playlist.
It's incredible. It really is good. Like I'm not even just pumping his tires. It's unbelievable.
No, I'm good at it.
John, I only brought that one up. You tweeted out a picture of their album cover like the same week that I had somebody send me their music, and I was
perfect.
This is so easy to listen to. It's unbelievable.
I got to dive into them deeper. That's the problem nowadays. I make these playlists. I don't dive into albums and groups like I used to. I think nobody does, right? That's the problem. The album has kind of died. It's just single.
Well, John, I think we've taken too much of your time, so we really appreciate you spending it with us and sharing some of your insight. I think this has been a really fun conversation, and we look forward to having you back on.
Anytime. A lot of fun. Really enjoyed it.
Thanks, Bucci.
Thanks, John.
See you, Shawnee. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And that's a wrap on today's episode of In the Harbor. Huge thanks to John Buccigross for joining us and sharing his stories and insight as we gear up for the Stanley Cup Final.
We hope you enjoyed John's comments as the journey to hoist Lord Stanley in the middle of June is upon us. The conference finals are here, and this is a great run-up analysis before the games.
If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to hit subscribe, like, and follow wherever you get your podcasts. Spotify, Apple, YouTube, you name it. Thank you.